I'm going to do a quick invitation for people to group together. Hi, everybody. We're going to start in just a few minutes. Just so you know, today will actually be a dialogue. So there will be discussion with people at your table. And if you are at a table where you know everybody already or you all work together, you will have a better experience if you either split up or share with other folks that you haven't met yet. So if you're comfortable with that, I would encourage you to consider meeting somebody new, grabbing a spot at a different table, whatever you are most comfortable with, but that would be awesome. We'll start in just a minute. Feel free. You can jump in whenever you
The
like.
live stream, it's nice to start on time.
I agree. Yeah. There might be a few times when I will need help running microphones.
Okay, I will do that.
For people to use them.
Yeah, yeah. That sounds good. Well, as people are coming in and settling in, I just want to say welcome to everyone. So glad to have you. It's nice to see people already connecting and saying hi to old friends. And so we're just very glad all of you are here this morning. I'm Carla Kilgore. I'm the Director of Mission Advancement at YWCA Northeast Indiana. And today we look forward to having a great dialogue featuring the library and some partners. So just to start out with some things that we ask everyone of all of our participants to help set a helpful tone for the meeting, we'll ask everyone become humble in the name of learning. We all know lots of things and we think we know even more than we do know, so it's nice to listen to other people and hear some fresh perspectives and have an open mind to those things. Be open to new ideas. Give everyone a chance to speak. One person talks, I'll listen. So if you're a person who is very talkative, you may want to pace yourself. And if you're a person who tends to hang back, I'm sure your table mates want to hear what you have to say too. Attack the problem, not the person. We want to treat each other with respect while we're here today. And then it's not exactly confidentiality, but we want to kind of take from people what we learned from them, but not move it into the realm of gossip or otherwise negative discussions about people after the meeting. So we welcome you to honor the different perspectives and stories that you might hear today. This diversity dialogue is put on by our Level Up Council. We believe that our community prospers when every member is supported, accepted, and valued. And so we look for ways to take deliberate action to educate, empower, and unite people through programs designed to create inclusion and build racial equity. Our vision is to help our region become the equitable place we know it can be. So it's time for us to all level up. Today, I welcome Beth, who is Boatwright, who is works here at ACPL and leads a lot of the programs with the community, and she's going to do some further introductions today. So I will welcome her to kick things off, and she's graciously agreed to provide this leadership today. So let's give her a round of applause and thanks.
Thank you so much, Carla. We changed those slides on you. Sorry, you didn't know that's what you're going to see. My name is Beth Boatwright. I am Allen County Public Library's Director for Community Partnerships and Programs. I'm so glad that you are here today, and I'm so glad that we are here today. When we were discussing what we might do in a dialogue about community-centered care, the ideas that floated around the table were that we really wanted to have a dialogue. We want everybody that has come today to have things to share and to learn from. And so as we thought about this idea of community-centered care, connected to one another, we decided to really format this as a dialogue. So I mentioned this if you were here like 10 minutes ago, but this is going to be a dialogue, so first prepare yourself. You're going to have to talk to each other. But also, if you're sitting at a table and you know everybody already, or you all work at the same place, you will have a more enjoyable discovery, kind of fulfilling time if you're sitting with people that you don't know as well, or maybe work somewhere different. So that can be a weird thing to do or ask, but if anybody wants to shuffle, you may, and it won't be super weird, it'll just be a little weird. We all understand the awkward. But just so you know, and also we will have some times for sharing where if you want to like zip around the room, that would be fine too. Our topic today is community-centered care. I wanted to share some of what the library is doing. I have some colleagues from the library and from among our partners that will share a little bit about what they're doing as well. But the idea of community-centered care, like I went to Google, y'all. I am not a social worker and I am not a medical person. I went to the source. I went to the AI that is the Google search screen results. But I started to learn, and I learned a lot. And what I learned is community-centered care is a phrase that's used in healthcare. It's a lot about understanding the needs of the people right in front of you and the people that are around you, understanding what resources are there, and using it to influence medical care. It's very similar in social work, from what I understand, not having a degree in that, but some of you do. Community-centered care is really about looking at what is in front of you and then looking at the wider context and creating services and solutions that meet people where they are. I learned it a little bit differently. I learned about asset-based community development, which is like a whole structure around this kind of idea. So we'll talk about that a little bit more. But our idea for today is to talk about how we as individuals and as people, most of us are here representing an employer or a job. Many of us have a group or a church or people that we identify with, or that's us, that's our work. To think about where we come from, what assets we have that we can mobilize on behalf of each other and our community. Think about how in our own work and with what we have, we can encourage equity and social connectedness, and how we can help increase each other's and everybody else's control over their own health, over their own lives, and from the library perspective, I would say, over their own stories. So I want to share, as we go through, we have a few different lenses that we will look at this with, but I'll share a little bit about what the library is doing, and I want to start with one of my favorite people. Our Director of Special Collections, Kurt Witcher, is going to come and talk about the library's vision and thoughts on the power of story.
Thank you, Beth, and what an honor to spend some moments with you today. So thank you for coming, and I'm humbled to be in your presence for a few moments this afternoon. As Beth gets us, there we go. All right. So I know you probably aren't all as geeked as I am about story. I'll give you just a quick little synopsis of how I got to where I'm at today. For a long time, I've wondered about, so like a few days ago, like 45 years and a couple of months ago, I started working in the Genealogy Center, and for a brief moment in time, I thought, this is really odd. Like, why are all these people coming, and this is BC, right, before computers. Why are all these people coming to this space and looking through all these books? Like, what drives these people to do that? And I heard from a lot of people, and I still hear from a number of people today, that this is kind of a silly thing. Like, why do you care about the past? Like, what drives people to do that? Within a couple years, I had an aha moment, and that aha moment has continued to grow throughout my entire career. And it really centers around something really basic, but we don't think about it a lot. And that's the power of story. That's why people do family history. That's why you find scratching on cave walls from millennia ago. That's why you find writings in papyrus, and why you have the storytellers, the story keepers in many different ethnic groups in many different regions of the world. And so as I begin to embrace that idea, that's what really drives people, is the power of story. And even more than that, I want to know my story. And I think hidden in that, and you may agree at different levels, but everyone has the right to know their story. Doesn't matter your ethnicity, your zip code, your age, where you are in the Milky Way galaxy. Everyone has a right to know their own story. So I'm really honored and pleased that from 1961, forever ago, the library has had a commitment to gathering documents and materials, and then databases, and then AI-generated material on helping people find their story. And before you say, gosh, Kurt, why should I really care? You know, I'm not into that. Maybe I will be someday, but why do I care? Because story matters. Story is powerful, and story matters in our lives. So from decades ago, I think about this often. It resonates in my heart, and it bounces around in my brain a lot. And that is, I am somebody. I am somebody. Everyone should feel proud and have the ability to embrace that and to know that at whatever level and in whatever context they want to. I am somebody. I count. So finally, and I say finally because I'm an impatient guy, like if it could happen yesterday, that would be awesome. If it could happen last month, it would be even better. So I'm really impatient. So I say finally, sociologists and educators and psychologists in some areas of the country and some areas of the world are embracing the fact that, yes, there is science behind the power of story, right? So what are educators and sociologists telling us over the last decade? That young people who know something about their story, and some educators will say as little as the names of their 4 grandparents. That's it. No places of birth, no life events, no awards, medals, no. Just their names. Knowing just that much of I am somebody, who am I? They are more open and adaptable to change and diversity. Who wouldn't want that for our young people? They test better. They make friends better. They are more open to people who don't look like them and don't think like them and don't talk like them and don't come from their place, but from any place. Why wouldn't we want this for our kids, for our community? And it goes on from there. Scientists tell us that, and this kind of boggles my mind, and I won't go into it too deeply because, well, people tell me I can get off on a tangent really quickly. But scientists tell us that no other activity, no other human activity lights up more of our brain than participating in story. Listening, telling, that combination. And if you think about it, all the things that we've done in our life, maybe something will equal experiencing story, but no other human activity lights up more of the brain than story. How powerful is that? And that can make you stumble in your thoughts a little bit about where your priorities are and what really matters in your life. So looking at what it can do for our younger people, and we can scoot all the way through the age continuum up to the more mature part of life, where we have people who are on the dementia spectrum. We are partnering with the National Institute for Dementia Studies, and they're finding some real evidence that showing a picture, telling a story about that picture, helps our loved ones on the dementia spectrum be more compliant to medical advice, be more compliant with health people. They lead happier lives. So more about the power of story. So I want to leave you with just one thought besides I am somebody, and by extension, you are somebody, and we have the right to know our stories and the impact on those stories. So up on the quote wall that's on the second floor, there are many quotes. And on the genealogy side of the Great Hall, there are history quotes. I want to leave you with Alice Walker's quote that's up on the quote wall. And she says, "How simple a thing it seems to me that to know ourselves as we are, we should know our mother's names." That's pretty profound. So, the power of story.
Thank you so much, Kurt. I could listen to Kurt talk about the power of story for like an hour. We should do that sometime. As we think about what the library does in our community, obviously the Genealogy Center helps people find their stories. I spent 45 minutes there yesterday. It was incredible. I learned things about my story that I had no idea about. It was wild. And if you go up there, you'll probably have a wild experience too, because almost everybody does. But also, like, the library is trying to help people find their stories in lots of different ways. Trying to help people write their stories, collect their stories, share their stories. We have our programming, our services, our collections. We're trying to be a place that is welcoming for everybody, no matter who they are, where they come from, what they do. We are a place for the people. Last night somebody called it the People's Palace, and I love that. I love that I get to work here. But also, we want to reflect everybody. Not just be like, oh, this is a place I can be, but this is actually a place where I see myself. And that's something that libraries have not necessarily always been good at, but it's something that we're working really hard on developing. We have an incredible public services team at all 14 of our branches. We have people doing extraordinary work. We have a new social worker on staff. We have a new bilingual specialist who just started. I'm very, very excited. We have public services where you can come, and if you have nothing, you can still pop on a computer and get something. We have people that will connect you to the people that can help you get something, and many of you are in this room. We are a connector, and individual stories are incredible. I told my boss last year, my performance review, it's like, I feel like I can do more good in one day at this library than I could have at any other job I've ever had. And I think many of you probably have that same experience, those of you that are working in social services. So going forward, I'd like to take about 5 minutes at your tables, please. Three discussion prompts that are here somewhere. I will find them. Okay, I will find them. We are going to ask you to introduce yourself and your group or organization, if you have one. And what does community-centered care look like in your world? How do you interact with people's stories? Who do you serve? That's the question for you. Who are you? What does this look like for you, and who do you serve? We'll talk back in about 5 minutes. just about a minute left. All right, please wrap up your last thought at your table. All right, thank you, everybody. Did anybody learn anything particularly new or interesting? Some group that you hadn't considered before? Anybody hear anything that was like, oh, I didn't know that somebody did that they'd like to share? No, we're good. We all know each other pretty well. Okay, that's fine. That's fine. I think I heard some things, but we'll let that come out a little bit later. Yes, thank you. Watch, my timer's over. Okay. I want to talk for a moment about our next topic, which I mentioned before. It's called asset-based community development. This is a framework that came out of Northwestern University. Has anybody done StrengthsFinder? It's like this, what's it, like Myers-Briggs, but it's like about, here are all the things that you're really good at, and you should build on those strengths instead of thinking about the ways you're not so great and trying to fix those things. So instead of fixing yourself, just try to make the good things better. And I've done this thing several times and had some coaching, and it's actually kind of an empowering way to look at things of like, oh, I'm actually kind of good at that. I'm a connector. Hey, look at that. I should do more connecting. I should get a job where I do community partnerships, you know? And it's like, let's talk about that. Asset-based community development is a framework, kind of like StrengthsFinder, but it's for entire communities. It's for community development and growth. I had a mentor at my last job who did like a 16-week like professional development course about it. You can do that and learn a lot, and that's where I first heard about it because she was excited about it. She's actually an archivist and was thinking about how the archives could impact the community that was developing. The idea is to build on the assets that are already found in a community to serve the needs of the community better. And it is a framework that says there's not equity. We know that. We know that maybe our immediate neighborhood doesn't have everything we need, and there's lots of needs. But instead of just listing all the needs and trying to fix them, let's look at what we have and let's build on it. One of the guiding principles for ABCD, as they call it, is that there's no one we don't need. And that's something I think ties really intrinsically with what Kurt was just saying about the power of story. We have capacity, and we have community capacity that exists, but we don't know about it, and so we're not using it. And several of us, many of us who work in social services, who run into the community all the time, like we know, there are some of us who are tapped out, but there's also a lot of people that have capacity, or maybe have capacity in different directions than what you thought of. Like, I love being super creative and doing fun stuff, like crochet. I'm not that good at it, but it's fun and I enjoy it. But if somebody was gonna be like, Beth, what's your capacity? I'm probably not gonna tell them about that. But if somebody needed something cool crocheted, I'd be like, yes, I have capacity for that. Sometimes we can be surprised by what resources we have available in different directions than we might have thought. And asset-based community development is a way that we can bring some of that to the surface. We are not going to do that today because it was a 16-week course just to learn about it. Feel free. It would be awesome. Come talk to me after you've learned it. We'll do it. But I want to share some of the things that it talks about because it might just tickle your brain a little bit. It believes, this framework says everyone has gifts. It says relationships build a community. I think we all know that. It puts citizens and people who live in a place at the center, not just as recipients of services, not just clients, but like community members, neighbors. The idea of leadership is to involve other people as assets in the community, not to be top-down, tell folks what to do. Believing that as individuals with stories, people care about something and the things they care about matter, and it's worth it to surface those stories. And understanding that there are different things that motivate each of us to act. And understanding what about each other motivates us to act can go a long way in helping us to build relationships and do something with this energy and capacity we have. This model focuses on listening in conversation and asking lots of questions. That's one of the reasons I became a librarian. I love asking questions. I like answering them too, but I like asking questions rather than giving answers is really key to having a conversation and building trust, building interest in one another, building relationships. One interesting piece of asset-based community development is that institutions sometimes reach their limits in problem solving. Our institutions were built in a certain way, and they do what they were built to do, and they don't always have the answers that we need. But when institutions can be servants of the needs, the people, the assets, the community, amazing things can happen. So in this process, they go through talking about what are individuals and individual strengths and capacity, associations, friendships, groups, organizations, institutions, physical assets like who's got the money, who's got the building, who's got the stuff, who's got all the books, and connections. Who do we know? Like, you know that, like, was 7 Degrees of Kevin Bacon, like, in this room, I'm sure we're probably closer than that to Kevin Bacon, but in Fort Wayne, we're like probably 2 or 3 degrees off from pretty much anybody else who lives in this community, and there's only like 50 of us in this room. Our connections really get us really far, and all of those connections also have capacity. So my next question for you to discuss at your table is this. What assets, strengths, or resources do you depend on or offer through your work? Or if you're here as an individual, through yourself or through your group. What assets, strengths, or resources do you depend on or offer? Pick 2 or 3 of them and just tell your table about 2 or 3 of the assets that you have access to or that you use as part of your job or life. 5 minutes, ready, set, go. about 1.5 more minutes, listing assets, sharing a little bit about them. All right, share your last thought, and then we're going to come back together for just a minute. All right. So I heard some things that were quite interesting to me. I learned about an incredible YWCA intern who has assets not just in their like self and their talents, but like works at Chick-fil-A, and that is also an asset that depending on your perspective and your level of hunger. I heard about, I was sitting here with CityLink for a second, like, y'all have buses. If I need buses, I know I can call you. But also, like, at the table, we're like, oh, what about the value of a safe place? What if my organization is a place where people can feel safe? That's also an asset. Would anybody be willing to share 1 or 2 things that popped up at your table that you're like, oh, yeah, that's an asset. That's a strength or a resource. I'm going to bring you a mic because we have people that are online, and also that is just good for people who can't hear very well.
So CityLink is awesome. I work at YWCA. One of the biggest things I'm grateful for recently, when we changed locations, a lot of the people we service rely on the bus line, and there was not a stop at our new location, and they made that happen. So great partners, great people. But what kind of came up as a theme on our table was a lot about building connections and relationships, and this underlying theme of empathy and understanding. And one of the things that I thought was really great to point out is we talked about within our own organizations, there are some of us who might have roles where we're interacting more with the people we're serving. And it's important to be able to rely on those stories and those experiences because they are the ones who truly know what the people we are serving are asking for, what they need.
Thank you. Anybody else want to share one or an asset that was interesting or different?
Everyone wanted me to share, so we have Marcia Smiley here. Okay, we have Marcia Smiley here at our table, and this past year we did a Black History Month scavenger hunt that centered local figures, and we were able to do that because of her collection with the Genealogy Center. So, yeah.
That's really cool. Anybody else want to share something that you thought of? A resource, strength, or asset? No? Dialogues? This. I have to agree. We're actually going to talk a little bit more about the value of this kind of thing in a few minutes, too. I have an activity, maybe. So at the end of your table are little cards. They're like 3.5 by 5s, like cut in half. I'm going to ask you each to take a handful. You're probably going to want 7 or 8 altogether. On 1 or 2 of the cards, please write who you serve. And on 1 or 2 of the cards, or 3, please write one of your strengths or resources that you or your organization has to share. It could be we're a safe place. It could be we have buses. It could be we have books. It could be we have a fantastic board of directors. So you're going to write on 1 or 2 cards who you serve. And I know there's library people here. You're not allowed to say everybody. pick a subgroup. Pick a subgroup. Write on 1 or 2 cards who it is you serve. And pick on 2 or 3 cards, write just one word, 1 or 2 words. What's that asset that you just identified and shared? So you're going to wind up with like about 3 or 4 cards, maybe 5, of who you serve and what your strengths or assets are. 1 per card, yeah. Just like you're making a flashcard. It should be easier because you've already talked about it. That's the goal, as we're setting this up. So you should have that in your brain. All right, the next thing that we're going to talk about, I thought about calling this section Finding Mutual Support, because I feel like I just need mutual support sometime. I need people who are going to support me, and I can support them, and I need some relationship happening. And then I thought, you know what, if I'm talking about partnerships, I really want to think about shared values. Because sometimes the best way to find a good partner is to think about what you value the most and who else values that too. Because if you both have shared values, you're probably going to be running in the same direction. So where we find community can really shape our understanding, both of the work that we have to do and what support we have to create and implement solutions. And that's where talking about this room comes in, right? The people that we know and the support we have will shape our capacity to do amazing work. So I want to tell a little bit about the library's story. We have connections in the community like Systems of Care. Many of you know about that. Allen County Health Equity Coalition is one place we find connections in the community. Everyone Home, there are folks from Everyone Home in this space and working on homelessness as a collective. Families in Transition, serving families and kids especially in our school systems who don't have a steady place to live. We've been working with Safe Place, which is fantastic and amazing, and the libraries are slowly becoming safe places as we get trained. So those are a few things from the library story, but there's one in particular I wanted to share, and I wanted to invite my colleagues Aisha Hallman and Charlotte Hinniger from our Youth Services Department to come and tell you about one special partnership. Hi.
I am Aisha, and something that Kurt said, I was writing down things. If I had an hour, I could talk to you more about what I'm going to talk about. But who knows what restorative practices are? If you are heard of restorative practices. Okay, well, not a lot of us. Well, that's what I'm going to talk very briefly about. They've been used by indigenous cultures in North America, New Zealand, some countries in Africa, and they are very different from the traditional white supremacist and paternalistic practices that have to do with behavior. So a simple definition is a way of working with conflict that puts the focus on repairing the harm that has been done instead of focusing on punishment. For this, I'm going to use the term community building practices because that is what our team member, our shared value person, school care team, that's the term they use. So school care team says that community building practices provide a framework for proactively strengthening connection and responding to challenges. And a little more about them on their About Us page. They say, in the community, we foster belonging and hope with the clients we collaborate with, creating connections with their workplace, community, and home environments, ultimately trickling down to the youth and their lives. So that's what I'm here for. I work in the Youth Services Department. My focus is on teens, but I will sort of do anything. And about 60 years ago, I was the assistant manager upstairs in the teens department. And when I got here, the manager and I were really into restorative practices. Because the way that we, if a teen did something that we thought was wrong, the way our behavior policy was, they could get kicked out very quickly for doing something that technically was developmentally appropriate. And we wanted to change that. So it took some time to move this forward. We would bring it up occasionally and say, hey, why don't we think about restorative practices? And it sort of, wasn't the right time. But about a year ago, we as a system rewrote our patron behavior policy, and we put restorative practices in there. And so it was my job to find someone who could help us with restorative practices, train us on this so that we could train the staff. And that's where I found School Care Team. They had actually worked with us on a few trainings. They had done staff training. I helped run Team Read, which is our summer teen program. They had trained some of our teens there. And most importantly, they had done community building practices, restorative practices with several of the schools in our community. And that was really important, I felt, because if we're going to be changing the way we do things with our youth, we might be using different practices, different language. If they already came to us with that knowledge that they were doing in schools, we thought it might be a little bit easier. So what we have done, we did meet with School Care Team before we started training because, again, they work with schools and libraries are very different. And so we talked about what we needed, how things worked here. We have 14 locations. So what may be okay at one location may not be okay at another. There's a lot going on throughout the system. And so we just wanted to make sure that what we needed, that they understood what we needed. So we started training, I want to say in January, February, maybe like that. Right now we have 3 poly branches. So Hessen Castle, Pontiac, and Georgetown, all of their staff have been trained in community building practices. All of our security staff have been trained, and then various youth services, people around the system have been trained on that. The youth services manager, my boss, and I have done some training too because we've been in all those trainings, so we've learned a lot about it. So we have been training staff too. To keep this going up, we trained in 2 separate cohorts. So each cohort meets bi-monthly to sort of talk about, how things have been going. Are you having any issues? And then we also learn a new practice so that we keep up with our training. Let's see what else. We are planning, hopefully, to train the rest of our locations by May of 2025, so that by the time school starts next year, all of our locations have been trained in this. We're starting with youth right now, and then maybe in 2026, we're hoping to roll it out to adults, but it really depends on how everything is going. So that is
All right. So Aisha talked about some of the background between this partnership, and I currently still work with teens every day. So I'm going to talk about what that looks like in the day-to-day environment. So if you ask me, Charlotte, what's your least favorite part of your job? Hands down, suspensions. Easy. When I first started as a librarian, I experienced a lot of stress when I would notice that a teen was being excessively loud in our space or eating food at the computer and other things that usually we'd have to go and have a chat with them, because I knew that that interaction could easily be a second warning, a third warning, and then you're suspending a kid from the library for doing things that are completely normal for teens to do. So CBP kind of came in an environment where we had almost the library workers and the library staff kind of versus the teens and enforcing the rules. But it's more than a disciplinary system. It's an entire mindset shift. It provides the teens in my department with the space to grow in a safe environment where they're allowed to make mistakes, and it helps shift the library from that paternalistic, we're here to tell you what to do and this is our space and this is what it needs to be used in, to a space that actually fully belongs to everyone. So don't eat food at the computer becomes we shouldn't eat food at the computer because it might make the keyboard sticky, and that isn't a good experience for the next person who uses it. Plus, CBP gives us opportunities to recognize teens when they are doing the right thing, and that positive encouragement is 10,000 times more impactful than anything else. So the main library teens department is not one of the pilot locations, but many of our librarians have been trained and we're able to use aspects of CBP in our day-to-day interactions. One of the greatest shifts that I've noticed is we don't have nearly as many suspensions or conflicts as we did in the pre-CBP times. We can talk through things with the teens, and oftentimes they even remind their peers So again, they're building community with each other. It also has helped us mediate conflicts as they come up between teens. We can have both sides feeling heard, and then we can figure out how to repair those relationships together. Like Aisha said at the beginning, I could talk about this for hours, but I'll keep it short. And the last thing I want to leave you to is that community building practices means we're not defining what the space is. The youth are defining that space with us.
So if you do want to talk about community management practices, please contact us, because again, we love it so much and we will talk about it forever.
It's really been quite phenomenal, and it's changing kids' lives, and it's changing our staff's lives too. Like, anyway, it's so good. And this is just one example of us finding a community partner who has this same value as we do about having community-centered life together, and saying, how can we work together? Now, in this case, this was like, we paid them, right? We paid them to train us. But there was a lot of conversation, and that's one way you can have a partnership, is by like hiring people who, if you can. There's other ways to have partnerships too. AARP offers free tax help, not just for AARP members, but for anybody. And so we offer those at the library, like a whole bunch of our locations. We believe in practices that reduce harm. And several of our locations have Narcan boxes now that anybody from the public can just take them just in case. Because my gosh, I want to reduce harm because every story matters. We're doing painting programs and book clubs right now with Mental Health America. Like we do painting programs and book clubs all the time, but like to do some that are really like with partners that matter to our community, that have something really special to share that we believe in, like that's really cool. Our values can drive this kind of thing, and it ends up as more than the sum of the parts. And it feels so good. I'm getting goosebumps. I'm like in that space, you know? So here's the thing. Here's your next prompt. Talk with one another. I'm going to give you a little bit less time, like 4 minutes, to think about what do you value? What's one or two of your primary values, yourself or your organization? And maybe has that factored into a partnership you've done lately? We won't have time for all 3 questions, but just pick one or two. But I want you to come away thinking about 1 or 2 values, because I'm going to make you write it on a card. So talk for a moment amongst yourselves. What values do you and your organization hold dear? about 1 more minute. All right, wrap up your final thoughts to share. And as you wrap up those thoughts, grab 2 more little cards and jot down on a couple cards 2 values that you mentioned, 2 values that guide you or guide your organization or that might guide your community partnerships. As I was sharing about some of those different programs, the partnerships we have, Follinger Foundation, who funds our summer reading program. There's so many people, the schools, all the daycares that we partner with to make sure the kids, especially in like the lower income daycares, have books. Like there's so many partnerships, and sometimes it's like a client relationship, and sometimes it's not. So there's that kind of partnership. But then there are also those bigger partnerships too, where it's really more of like finding your community, where it's the bigger ones like the Allen County Health Equity Coalition, Systems of Care, Families in Transition, where it's a whole bunch of people all coming together around a shared value, a shared goal, something that we want to do together. So the library participates in lots of those. I mentioned several, but there's one that's really special to me and that I'm like really wowed by right now. Part of the reason I'm wowed by is our partner is incredible. So we've been working, I'm gonna let you share, but Amani Family Services has been leading an initiative called Welcoming Fort Wayne. The city, the county, many have been involved. Their director of mission advancement, Kiara Carr, is here, and she's gonna tell you a little bit about how we get everybody moving in the same direction.
Thank you so much, Beth, for that kind introduction. Hello, my name is Kiara Carr. I'm seeing a lot of familiar faces, so hi, everyone. Director of Mission Advancement at Amani Family Services. If you haven't heard of our organization, we've been around Fort Wayne for nearly 18 years now. We started off as the Crime Victim Care of Allen County. So we originally were here just to help our immigrant refugee neighbors and residents navigate the court system as victims. But in that journey, you learn so much about the people you serve. And so over the 18 years, we have expanded our programs to really support the mental health of our immigrants and refugees here. We do that through community counseling, but we also have family support for our families in crisis. And we also do that through our foundational piece of victim care as well. So we're still here to make sure that everyone is assisted. I'm gonna see, okay, perfect. Maybe I should do it the fancy way. There we go. Sorry, we have a swiper at work, and so now I'm like, swipe, and then. So I've been really inspired by this idea of power of story. So let me tell you a little bit story about our immigrant and refugee community that lives here. We have currently more than 25,000 immigrants and refugees living in Allen County. That actually is a little bit closer to 28,000 as of 23. They make up 24% of our total population growth. So we're talking about a substantial number of people who are really supporting our contribution and economy. And I have a few of those numbers down here for you, that they spend $160 million in taxes, but they also hold about $500 million in spending power every year. We're an active refugee resettlement site through Catholic Charities. So we have one of the largest populations of Burmese living outside of Burma, Myanmar here. In Fort Wayne Community Schools, we have more than 4,200 students who are considered English language learners. Something interesting too about that 25,000 number, we have about, out of that 25,000, 30% of that population are considered to be limited English proficiency, meaning that they need support daily to navigate our community. They just can't read a brochure independently. They need it to have it translated. They need to have an interpreter support them. And as you may know, that's a very limited service that we have here currently in Allen County. And then also, more than 80% of our immigrant refugee community live here for more than 5 years. So this isn't a transient community. This isn't just people who kind of come in and then, sneak out at the end of the night. They are here, they reside here, they invest here. Their children are going to your schools with your kids. And so how do we contribute and make a better community for them is really a big question that we have at Amani, which isn't, sort of what people think when they think about us, because we are a mental health nonprofit. But for Amani, in that 18 years that we've been around, advocacy has always played a huge part, because we have to create innovative programming for the people we serve, because it's just not here when we need them to be. So we have to create it for ourselves. So Welcoming Fort Wayne became our formal way of doing that in 2020. We adopted this initiative to really address some community pieces and to be really to amplify the voice of immigrants and refugees, but also serve as cultural brokers. We do that in a multitudes of ways. We have Welcoming Week that takes place in September. We just held our 3rd annual event this year, in which we work with community partners like the library to host events that celebrate inclusion and diversity through an entire week. We also have our Welcoming Fort Wayne Awards that happen, so we recognize our immigrants and refugees who do amazing work every single year. We also have our mission events like World Refugee Day, where we celebrate the resiliency of those refugees who come here and make a home here. We meet at Foster Park on June 20th, so put in your calendar, where we just have a nice little potluck dinner together. We celebrate with music, and we have a piñata for the kids. That is always a big winner. And then, of course, we do that through supporting our organizations here through cultural competency. So we work with schools, hospitals. We've done them with our other nonprofit partners, where we come in and use our experiences as providers to show how to better engage and navigate different cultures that exist here in Fort Wayne. And then, of course, we do it through community development. So one piece of being a part of Welcoming Fort Wayne is knowing about our Welcoming Fort Wayne plan. We just launched this in January of this year, but we worked with partners like the library, Greater Fort Wayne, Downtown Fort Wayne, Community Foundation, a multitude of other partners. They're all listed in this plan. But we came together using the data that we collected to think about how can we create recommendations and strategies to create a better inclusive community. And we split them up into 4 focus areas. So we have a part on connected communities, so our nonprofit sector. We have one on economic development and entrepreneurship. So we know that $500 million that immigrants are bringing into our community is important. What can we do to help them thrive, get better job opportunities here? We also have civic engagement, so working with our local government to make sure that there's policies and structures in place that support immigrants and refugees, and then also education, and that's our bicultural youth, but also our adult learners who are trying to get certifications and degrees recognized so that they can be a better contribution to our economy as well. And I really wanted to share some of those key outcomes and achievements that we've already achieved just in the past year. So this year, Amani has outreached to more than 38,000 people through community events like these, through meetings, and also through our cultural competency trainings. We've increased participation in our Welcoming Week. We had more than 2,000 people attend a Welcoming Week event this year, as well as being at capacity for our Welcoming Fort Wayne Awards as well. We've had some statewide collaborations. And then we're working on certification with Allen County government. So in the end of September, Allen County government voted unanimously to support a certification designation for Allen County, where we will work with them next year to formally have Allen County designated as a welcoming county through the best standards through Welcoming America. So we're super excited about that. But the most important part that I'm really proud of is seeing the wins that our community leaders and team members have been able to achieve. So we're very proud of the Allen County Library for hiring a bilingual program, a partnership specialist. Greater Fort Wayne, they're doing cultural competency trainings to help entrepreneurs and business owners here to work with foreign talent and foreign partners. We have downtown Fort Wayne open a welcoming spaces alley during the Alley Bash this year. And then we have the city of Fort Wayne, the Housing and Neighborhood Services now require nonprofits to submit evidence of a language access plan for their services since they're receiving federal dollars. These are all really small incremental pieces that we need to create everlasting change in our community. And so it really takes that collaborative efforts of so many of us to make a more impactful future for welcoming Fort Wayne. So thank you.
Like, what do you say? Like, what do you say to that? Wow. Yeah, let's have questions at the end. There'll be a great time to do that. And yeah, there's a lot of people who might want to be involved. Just be aware. There, I see sparks, light bulbs going off and around the room. And that's actually what makes this kind of thing so special, right? But wow. I mean, this is a team that they have their own work to do, but they have taken the lead. They found capacity, got interns, built new positions, fundraised to fund them. And now they have entire people whose job it is to lead this work and to set meetings that get all the community leaders to come together, but not just the ones you know about, but the ones you maybe haven't thought about who should be at that table. They're so good at it. And we can do more of this, and we are. This is happening around our community. You probably have groups like Welcoming Fort Wayne, groups like this one. This is a dialogue kind of place, but there's also places where you're working together toward goals, and that's what I want you to think about next. What community or professional groups keep you connected? Maybe it's your church, maybe it's your synagogue, maybe it's something that's profession specific, the American Library Association, that helps us, right? But maybe it's Diversity Dialogues in YW. Maybe it's something else. I would be really interested to hear all of them because I want to partner with all of them. But why don't you pick a couple? Where do you find your support? What helps you get the most out of those relationships or organizations? Talk about that. We're gonna do about 5 minutes again. And be ready to write it down.
About 1 more minute.
All right, wrap up your last thought as you're sharing. If you've noticed a pattern, the next thing to do is to grab one of those cards. You can raise your hand if you need another one, or there's Post-its. Just jot one per card, pick one, maybe pick two. Where do you find your personal or professional community? Where is it for you? And I'm actually going to ask, this is selfish, but I actually wasn't kidding. Like, I want to partner with everybody. Could you grab an extra card and pass it around your table and write down yours again, all in the same card, so I can take it with me and learn about all the stuff in the community that I don't know about yet, all the places. So write down one per card for yourself, and then take one for your table and just put them all on there, because that'll help the library go further faster. All right, thank you for doing that. You all should have a set of cards in front of you. Nod, yes, you have a set of cards that have things on them that you have written, yes? All right. So I'm gonna give this a minute, and actually I'm gonna change this because of how wonderfully the conversation has gone today. I think this would be too much if we did it this way, but the thought was, I want to take some time. You have made new connections, hopefully, at your table. But I would like to help you find new connections and just think out of the box. Think creatively about what could be possible. Not necessarily what should be possible. It can be terrible ideas, but what could be possible? So I was going to say take 2 or 3, but if you have 5 people or 6, just take one. Shuffle your deck. Don't look at them. Just pick one. Who you serve, what your value is, an asset you have, a place you get support, and put it in the middle. Go around and share them out loud with your neighbors. And I want you to just pick one, stick it out there and say, okay, what do you notice? Is there anything in common? Is there anything that could be possible that would connect these in a meaningful way? What would be possible if all these things were connected? I want to see if what ideas, wacky or awesome, could come from this. So give it a try. Okay, if you don't like your mix, like take some out and put some other ones in and see what you get. All right, I'm going to have you wrap up this brainstorming session. Finish your last thought. Give them 10 or 15 more seconds. All right, we're gonna do that thing that nobody likes to do, but actually, if you do it, it'll be fine. It'll be cool. I promise. We're all nice people. Take your little deck of cards, please, and stand up and find 2 different people that you haven't talked to yet. And I want you to just pick one. Pick one of your cards. Everybody pick one card. So you're looking at 3 cards in a little group, and see if there's something that connects them or some way they could work together. I'm going to give you 4 minutes. Find somebody new. Show them a card. See if you have a weird or fun idea. If you reach an ending point, it's okay to find somebody new. What would be possible if you connected these things? All right, wrap up your idea, your shared conversation, and make your way back to your seat. All right, make your way back. Thank you, everybody, for playing along. We need to draw our time to a close. But I'm curious, and so we're gonna take literally 2 minutes because that's all we have. But did anybody come across a couple cards that you looked at it and you're like, what would that look like? What would it look like if we crossed those and turned them into a thing? Did anybody come up with something that was, I came up with one once. It was like Humane Society in a library, and it was like, what if we had adoptable kittens in a meeting room? Environmental Services said no. But did anybody come up with anything that you want to share?
Well, I connected with Parkview's FAST program, which I never knew existed. They help navigate people. They talk about, they reach out to people with food insecurity and connect them with resources for them. And I'm the audio reading service, and we broadcast news and information to people, and we also run PSAs for local organizations. So I said I would love to run a PSA for
That's awesome.
FAST program.
Thank you. Did anybody else make a connection or see a new idea, good, bad, or otherwise? Weird, wacky, fun?
If anybody knows me, they know I'm already a little bit crazy. So one of the things that I want to connect is anybody who's on the bus line, connecting them to financial services. We talked a little bit about it in our group and with some other partners who I already met with. But a way for people who don't have the capacity to go to different places, bringing the financial literacy, financial education to them literally where they're at. So that is my crazy, wacky idea, and I'm putting that in the works for 2025. So if anybody has any questions.
Wow. Knowing somebody from CityLink would be awesome.
Hey, and that's why I'm connecting with CityLink.
All right, look at that. All right, I hope that you all can see the value of this, of thinking about the things that we do, the connections we have, the values we have, and the ways that we can work together in the same direction, the ways that we can innovate something new and find people we didn't know were out there that can be supportive and helpful. I hope that this makes you think a little bit, and I hope that the library can be a place where you discover more. Hope we can be a place, too, where we can maybe asset map some of this stuff. Maybe, I don't know, somebody go learn about this asset-based community development and come do it for real. We'll hire you. But like, this is really cool. And your stories are what have brought this here. And like, our stories are what they are, but they also are like, what could be? And I love that. Because we're gonna write whatever this story is, we're gonna write it together. We're gonna write it for our city and for our county. We're gonna write it for our families, for our schools, for our libraries. And I'm really glad that you're a part of it. Thank you for bringing your unique perspective and contribution today. I'm going to turn it back over to Carla. Oh, and thank you to everybody who shared. I'm so grateful for you, my colleagues.
We appreciate you being here today and really participating. This felt like such a rich conversation, and I now want to stay all afternoon, but I'm sure everyone also has other plans. Just to share, as our Dress for Success program wraps up, we are going to have a sale to the community, so feel free to come on November 23rd to Washington Center Road, and it's just $5 an item. So if you know somebody looking for some professional garb, that's your spot. You can sign up for our racial justice emails. You can use the QR code here, or just drop your card at the table on the way out if you don't have time to navigate that. We are scheduling racial justice trainings. Diversity 101 is something that, if you haven't had it, is a really good opportunity to kind of learn some basics. Oops, somebody was trying to take a picture, and I went the wrong direction. So please feel free to sign up for those, or you're welcome to talk to me after. And if you'd like to make a donation, we never turn those away, so you're welcome to do so. I do want to say that as we look towards wrapping up this year and moving into the next year, we are talking about how do we have some maybe action things that come out of these diversity dialogues over the next year. So be thinking about coming to maybe participate in our next year's diversity dialogues, and with an eye towards how do we maybe use some of the Kingian nonviolence principles and move from education into looking at what steps we can take together. So I'll leave you with that thought, and I really appreciate your time here today. Oh, and thank you. Thank you to our guest speakers and Beth for leading this group today. Oh, sorry. There's keep being one more thing. So we wanted to thank our sponsors as well. ACPL has been providing us this space this whole year, and Three Rivers is the event sponsor who helped contribute to our work in the community. Now you really are able to go. Thank you.